The year is 2003. You are at the Station Nightclub, packed in with nearly 500 rock fans waiting for the band Great White. At 11:07 p.m., the show starts. Pyrotechnics shoot sparks into the air. You see the foam on the walls catch fire. You laugh thinking it's part of the show, but the flames don't die. They climb. The heat hits your face and you realize this is not part of the show. The fire doesn't just spread, it explodes across the ceiling, swallowing the room in seconds. A thick black smoke instantly fills the room, blinding you, choking you. Panic erupts. You surge toward the main entrance, but it's a bottleneck. You are slammed against a wall of other bodies, a human blockade jamming the narrow door. People are falling. You are pushed on top of them, pressed so tightly you can't even fall down. You are pinned, dying on your feet. The smoke burns your lungs. It doesn't smell like wood. It smells like chemicals, like burning plastic. And that's when you realize you've been tricked. You paid for a ticket. You trusted them, and they killed you for it. Today, we explore the horrifying truth that the deadliest killer at a concert isn't chaos. It's greed. Let's go back to you. Trapped in that doorway, suffocating on that chemical smoke. You are watching the horrifying result of a choice. The band Great White was known for using pyrotechnics. The club owners knew this, yet they chose to line the walls and ceiling around the stage with polyurethane foam. This was a cheap, common soundproofing material, and it was highly flammable. It had never been treated with fire-retardant chemicals. This was the first act of negligence. When those 200-degree sparks hit that foam, it acted like solid gasoline. The fire raced across the ceiling at over 15 feet per second. The venue itself was the second act of negligence. It was a perfect trap, dimly lit with a low ceiling and limited exits. As hundreds of people rushed for the main entrance, that single door became a bottleneck of death. But here is the final horrifying truth of the owner's negligence. 100 people perished that night. Medical examiners later found that most victims did not die from the burns. They died from the smoke. That cheap burning foam released a cloud of toxic fumes, including cyanide. You and 99 others were trapped in a gas chamber. You were killed not by a fire, but by a budget cut. But what's worse than using the wrong material to save money? It's knowing with certainty that the building you are in is structurally failing and doing nothing about it. The date is April 8th, 2025. You are at the Jet Set Nightclub in San Domingo. The multi-level venue is packed to capacity. Hundreds of fans are filling every available space on the dance floor, and balconies all here to see Ruby Perez, one of the most popular meringue singers in the Dominican Republic. The energy is electric. What you don't know is that the building you're dancing in is a ticking time bomb. It had undergone hasty renovations. Plasterboard had been installed just hours before you arrived. Most critically, the roof above your head lacks proper support. It has narrow columns only on the sides, and none in the center. This wasn't an oversight. This was a deliberate choice. Later investigations revealed the nightclub owners had received multiple warnings about the roof's structural integrity. They knew it was unstable, but they chose to ignore those warnings to avoid costly repairs. They looked at the cost of fixing the roof, looked at the money they'd make from this sold-out show, and they rolled the dice with your life. At 11:45 p.m., as the music reaches a crescendo and hundreds of people are dancing, a low creaking sound begins above you. Few notice it over the pounding music. Then, without warning, the entire ceiling structure gives way. Thousands of pounds of concrete, metal, and building materials crash down onto the crowd. Those directly underneath have no chance to escape. But the real horror wasn't just the impact. The collapse wasn't instantaneous. Many victims weren't killed outright. They were trapped alive, pinned by debris in the darkness. They died from slow suffocation, their chest cavities compressed under the massive, unmoving weight of the building. The 220 people who died that night weren't just killed by concrete. They were killed by an ignored warning. A death that was 100% preventable, sacrificed for the price of a repair bill. The owners at Jet Set buried their warning. They hid the danger to keep the party going. But what happens when the negligence isn't a hidden Easter egg? What happens when the death trap is right there in plain sight, and the organizers simply let it happen? On October 17, 2014, thousands of K-pop fans are gathered in Seongnam, just outside of Seoul. You are one of them here for a free outdoor concert by the popular girl group 4 Minute. The venue is held near a busy shopping district, and it is packed far beyond capacity. You can barely see the stage. Others are looking for a better vantage point. A group of approximately 20 to 30 spectators notices a raised ventilation grate. It offers a perfect, unobstructed view. You watch as they one by one climb onto the metal cover. This is the moment of negligence. This grate is an obvious hazard. It is part of a ventilation shaft that drops more than 10 meters 3 stories straight down into darkness. It was never designed to support the weight of one person, let alone dozens. Yet there are no barriers. There are no security guards warning people away. The organizers, in their failure to control the crowd, have left an open trap in plain sight. At 5:53 p.m., as 4 Minute takes the stage and begins their performance, more fans crowd onto the grate. The thin metal cover begins to bow. Some witnesses later reported hearing a metallic groaning sound, but in the excitement of the concert, no one pays attention. Then, with no warning, the grate gives way. In an instant, 27 people plummet into the darkness below. Their screams are completely drowned out by the music. Those who fell first hit solid concrete at the bottom of the shaft. Those who fell seconds later landed on top of them. The impact is devastating. 16 people die from catastrophic injuries, their bodies broken by the fall. The performance continued for several minutes before anyone realized what had happened. The negligence wasn't a secret memo or a cheap invoice. It was a gaping hole right in the middle of the venue that everyone saw, but no one in charge cared enough to guard. We've seen how greed can turn a building into a trap. We've seen how ignoring an obvious hazard can leave a hole for people to fall into. But the ultimate betrayal of trust is when the very people hired to protect you become the thing that will kill you. On December 6, 1969, the Altamont Speedway in California hosted a free concert meant to be the West Coast's Woodstock for 300,000 fans. But the organizers made one catastrophic decision. They hired members of the Hells Angels Motorcycle Club as security. These weren't trained professionals. They were notorious outlaws. And their payment, $500 worth of beer. This was negligence turned into an active threat. Throughout the day, tensions escalated as the Angels brutally beat fans who got too close to the stage. By nightfall, the atmosphere had turned dangerous. As the Rolling Stones performed, Under My Thumb, 18-year-old Meredith Hunter Jr. attempted to reach the stage. When the Angels blocked him, a scuffle broke out. Hunter, feeling threatened, pulled a revolver from his jacket. Angel member Alan Passaro immediately noticed the weapon. He rushed forward with a hunting knife, stabbing Hunter repeatedly in the back and neck. As Hunter tried to escape, other Angels surrounded him, kicking and beating him as he fell to the ground. The attack happened just yards from Mick Jagger, who continued singing completely unaware that a murder was taking place. That was 1969. But the catastrophic failure of human security would only get worse. On November 5th, 2021, 50,000 fans gathered in Houston for Travis Scott's Astroworld Festival. Here, the negligence was systemic. The security measures failed before the show even began. Earlier that day, hundreds of people had broken through entrance gates, bypassing security checkpoints. By 8:30 p.m., medical staff had already treated dozens for heat exhaustion and dehydration. The organizers knew the situation was out of control, and they let the show begin. At 9:06 p.m., when Travis Scott took the stage, the crowd surged forward. Those in front were instantly compressed against metal barricades. People began to fall. Once someone went down, others toppled on top of them. The pressure built to catastrophic levels, causing compressive asphyxia death by crushing. Victims remained conscious as their oxygen levels dropped, feeling every second of their suffocation. 10 people died, including 9-year-old Ezra Blount, who was on his father's shoulders when the surge hit. And just like in 1969, the music never stopped. This was no longer a failure of a single wall or a bad security team. This was the failure of an entire system, which saw the warning signs and chose to look away. We've seen how greed, indifference, and incompetence can turn a celebration into a tomb. But what about a scenario that negligence cannot explain? A scenario where the roof is sound, the materials are safe, and the security is professional. But death comes anyway. On October 1st, 2017, the Route 91 Harvest Festival in Las Vegas is in its final night. Country music star Jason Aldean is on stage performing for a crowd of 22,000 fans. The venue is an open field directly across from the Mandalay Bay Resort. At 10:05 p.m., as music fills the air, 64-year-old Stephen Paddock opens fire on the crowd from a broken window on the 32nd floor. The first shots are mistaken for fireworks, then reality sets in. Bullets rain down at a rate of 9 per second. This isn't a structural failure. It isn't a faulty wire. It's an attack from the outside, turning the open-air venue into a kill box with nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. The very thing that made the festival feel free, the open space is exactly what makes it a perfect target. 58 people are killed, and more than 800 are injured. And this is perhaps the most horrifying realization of all. We can hold owners accountable for cheap materials and ignored warnings, but we can't account for the lone killer. It's the one scenario where the illusion of safety shatters no matter how much you trust the people in charge. So, what is the real takeaway? The horrifying lesson isn't just that concerts are dangerous. The lesson is that human greed is the most predictable and the most lethal weapon of all. We are trained to fear the sudden chaotic act, the fire, the collapse, the surge. But these stories prove that the real killer is the slow, quiet, calculated decision made weeks or months before. It's the line item on a budget, the ignored engineer's warning, the fire retardant that wasn't bought. The final terrifying truth is this: these weren't accidents, they were choices. And that is the reality we have to live with every time we step into a crowd. These are just the failures we know about. What other horrifying examples of negligence, where profit was valued more than human lives, have we missed? Let us know in the comments below.